So, hello and welcome. It's Lynn here from the Learn English Network. We're actually on the library sim today because we're going to discuss our next book for the reading club, and we'll do a bit of reading. I thought what we could do today is read a fairy story, and I've chosen The Emperor's New Clothes. I don't know if you're aware of the story, but it's a good one. And it's not really a fairy story in some ways because there aren't really any fairies in it. It's more a fable, to be honest. But do you know the difference between a fable and a fairy story? Any ideas?
Both are not real, but I don't know. But one thing, Lynn, I see you now from the from the side, and you are sitting so weird
Am I?
on the mushroom. You are not sitting actually. I only
I am.
see your both feet on the mushroom, and your bottom was 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 flying actually. It's
Oh, floating, not flying, because I wasn't.
floating,
The
floating,
the
floating. Yeah,
butterflies are flying because they're moving around. But if you're just sort of up in the air, not moving, you're floating. Okay, can you see the
yeah. You are
mushroom now? Because I am
floating.
honestly. You can check the stream later. I am sitting on
Hmm.
a mushroom, honestly.
Really,
Yeah,
not for me. It's so weird.
it's just not.
You
It's
are
not
just
rest.
like,
It's not rest for you. If you move, if you go and
no.
sit somewhere, you'll probably find it will res. You can choose a mushroom. Oh no, don't sit on shiny.
I was clicking on sit here, but I'm not sitting. What's happened now
You're
with
sitting
my
on shiny.
Kitely? And where is that bottom? Where is that? Where is that stand that
Stand
I have to
is.
click? I don't have it. I
Well,
don't have
I've
it.
got it.
How can I stand now?
I don't
How can I
know.
stand now?
It's very funny. If you watch the stream, you'll be able to see what's happened to you. Try just moving. Try just flying or something. Because
What happened now? I
I don't know.
can't. I can't move.
You can't move. You're
I can move. I can move.
Shiny. Could you move? I know it's difficult for you sometimes to move, but could you step backwards a bit, maybe, Shiny? Ah, well done, Shiny. Okay, we'll leave you float. You're floating in midair now, April. So I don't know what's going on with your system, but it doesn't matter as long as we can hear each other. That's all that really matters. Anyhow, I chose the library today because it is so grey and miserable and cold in Germany at the moment. It's been wet and dank and just horrible weather. Not a winter wonderland at all. I felt quite sorry for our visitors, but that's I can't book the weather, so I thought we'd have a bit of spring. It's a bit early, but today on my walk with Leica, I did see the catkins. So spring is coming quite early. I mean, it's January, and to see catkins on the hazel trees was quite a surprise. But anyway, so we'll leave April floating in midair because we're going to, as I say, read today. And my question to you was, what's the difference between a fable and a fairy tale? Any idea?
I don't know. Fairy tale? Is it about fairy? About something extraordinary?
Yeah, I
And
think you're
fable
right.
is
I mean,
just.
fables are often written for children, but they're also written for adults. So fables often have an element of maybe talking animals in them, but there's often a moral in the story as well. And quite often they're written for children, but they're more likely to be real. Fairy tales, again, often talking animals, but lots of magic. To me, fairy tales contain magic, um, things that are unreal. And fairy tales are written purely for children, just for kids. Fables can be written for children and adults. Then, of course, we have folk tales, and folk tales tend to be local tales. Folk tales tend to be tales from different countries. We call them folk tales. Again, sometimes a little bit of reality mixed in, but often with a little bit of um, a moral in the story. They all contain morals, usually, something that says how we should live our lives, etc. Um, and yeah, but to me, folk tales and fairy tales are on one side of the equation, fables are on another side. And I like both. I mean, they might have been written for children, but I still enjoy reading fairy tales, and they're great for learning, of course, because they're written for children. They often use simpler language, and so they are good for learners. There are loads of websites out there with short stories, folk tales, fairy tales, fables. Just if you just search for all those terms, let me just write down folk tales, fable, fairy tales, and legends and myths as well. Okay. So if you search for those terms, um, maybe add a country as well. Japanese fables or Japanese folk tales can be really interesting, actually, Shiny. And also Arabian. Add a country's name, and you'll find lots of different types of fairy stories and folk tales outside the sort of Hans Christian Andersen, Grimm brother ones that tend to be more common in Europe. Romanian folk tales as well. They can be quite dark. Russian folk tales, or really dark. So lots of stuff to read. Today I thought we'd read The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. It's one of my favourite, and I won't call it a fairy story because there are no fairies in it. It is a folk tale or a fable, um, but I love the moral behind it, really. I love the lesson it tries to teach. So do you have a favourite folk tale or fairy story? Is there something you love or remember from your childhood, or maybe more recently as an adult learner?
My favorite is from Oscar Wilde. I think is that the what was the name? Okay,
The
the
Happy
title. That
Prince?
is about no,
No?
the what, Lynn?
The Happy
The
Prince.
one with the bird that it sees a young man, very very sad, and this
Oh,
bird wanted to to comfort him, and that young man is in love with a young girl, but that young girl doesn't want to be with him, and she asked for red roses, and then but he has only white rose in on his window, in on a pot
oh, The
in a pot on
Nightingale and
his
the
window.
Rose.
The nightingale, and yeah,
That's
that
it.
one. Oh, that I love that. Yeah, the nightingale.
Oh, that's
It's
nice,
very,
yeah.
it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Oscar Wilde often, I mean, The Happy Prince, um, that's again Oscar Wilde, and there's nothing happy about it at all. But Oscar Wilde actually rewrote that. He took that story, and this often happens with fairy stories. They travel, and they are changed. People hear them. They're often folk tales that are told verbally, and then a lot of people who travelled much, they would then take that story and they would put it into the context of their culture. So in Oscar Wilde's case, anglicise it. I believe Hans Christian Andersen wrote the original. I believe. Oh yeah, yeah. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Nightingale. Oscar Wilde took it and rewrote it, but Hans Christian Andersen would have heard that story somewhere else and written it in his collection of stories. So some of these stories are ancient, and you'll find similar stories in different cultures. Maybe a different bird, maybe a girl and a boy, and the girl is the one who's in love, and the boy is the one who's being impractical. Yeah. But yes, I know the Nightingale and the Rose. Yeah, but Shiny has crashed, so let's hope she can find her way back to us. Let's see if I can send her a teleport again. Fingers crossed. Okay. We'll see if what her favourite folktale is. Okay, but what about our next book? What do you think our next book should be? Marco confused me this morning, by the way, April, when he said only one page to go before the end of Five Children and It. And I was like, ah? I thought we'd
Yeah,
finished that.
what is he talking
I
about?
don't know.
Yeah.
I think he's reading it himself. He decided to read the book himself. So, because we finished the Happy Print, we've done a whole book since that one. Hi, Shiny, welcome back. Can you hear us? Have you got a white dot? Let's see. Yes. Okay, good. Shiny, do you have a favourite folk tale or fairy story?
Yes, yes. I like to read Aesop fables or, like you said, Anderson fables.
Okay,
When
so
I was
Hans Christian Andersen fairy stories, but yeah, you're right. Aesop wrote fables. Aesop's fables are great for learners because they're so short. But again, did you know that those fables were much older um, than from Aesop's time? Um, they think that there's many of the stories were taken from older fables, and he put his name to them. We were just discussing that when after you crashed, that Oscar Wilde's The Nightingale and the Rose story was taken from, or paid homage to, we won't use the word plagiarised it, paid homage to Hans Christian Andersen's The Nightingale. But also Hans Christian Andersen is known to have travelled and heard stories that he then wrote down. These stories were often just um, told round campfires. That nobody had ever written them down. The Grimm brothers as well. They wanted to preserve these stories, and in some ways they did. But a lot has been lost because they didn't really say where they originally heard them and who originally told them. Now I'm just trying to find out. Oh, there we go. The Panchtantra, which is a book of parables, and many of the fables of Aesop's fables were taken from um, the Panchtantra. Panchtantra. Oh gosh. Yeah, they collected them. They collated them. A collection of fairy stories, and if you study the history of novels and stories, there are some people who say there are only 6 stories that have ever been written. I think it's 6. Don't quote me on the number, but every story told since is just a version of that same tale, including Shakespeare. Oh, let's not get started with Shakespeare because many people think that his stories were from a different source, that he didn't actually write them, he just put his name to them. But who knows? As far as I'm concerned, he wrote them because his name appears next to them. But yeah, every story ever written was written so many centuries ago, and all we do now is we put our own stamp on it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Okay, so what kind of book would you like to read next time? Have you got anything, any genre, or any? Have you had any ideas of what we should start reading for our next full novel or book? Any ideas?
I want. Actually, I would like to read something about an adventure, about an
Adventure.
adventure. Yeah, like the one we read. What was that again? The title in with the dog.
Call of
That
the
was
Wild.
yeah, yeah, that
Call of the
one.
Wild.
Something like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
From yeah, a youth book
Okay.
about something like that.
Yeah, I don't think of Mice and Men have been has come out of copyright. Okay. Uh, okay. So it's got to be out of copyright. Remember, that's unfortunate, but the way it is. Um, what about something like Robinson Crusoe? April. Have you ever read Robinson Crusoe?
Yeah, I have seen the film.
Yeah, it doesn't
Uh,
count.
the, yeah, doesn't count, no.
I mean, it's Daniel
But
Defoe,
another
but
thing,
we'll forgive him.
uh, something else maybe. Uh,
Okay.
Not about romantic, not about
Nothing
romance. No,
romance.
not
Okay.
pride. No, nothing
Well,
romance.
we've done Pride and
Something for
Prejudice.
children.
Yeah, we've done Pride and Prejudice. How about the Three Musketeers? Have you ever read the Three Musketeers?
Yeah, not really the whole episode because there is a lot of books of the
Yeah,
three
we'd read
musketeers.
the Three
But
Musketeers.
Robin Hood is better maybe
Robin Hood. Oh,
instead.
I'm not sure what
Yeah.
books there have been written. There's been lots of books written about Robin
Oh,
Hood. Um, oh, I tell you what we could do, which has there's no one book about Robin Hood, by the way.
hmm?
It's not based on a book. It's a legend. Okay, so if you want to know the difference between a legend and a fairy story, nobody knows if Robin Hood truly existed. But no, there's no one definitive book about Robin Hood. There's the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. Okay, um, and that's by Howard Pyle. I've never read it myself. I don't know. Um, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, maybe we could do that. It was published in 1883. The guy must be long gone. Uh, the Adventures of Robin Hood by Roger Lancelin. That's 1956. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Okay, we might be able to do that one. That's quite a good one because there's a lot of humour in the Robin Hood stories. But as I say, I've never read the book because I grew up in Nottingham. You know everything about Robin Hood that you need to know. Oh, wonderful, service unavailable. Great. Hang on. So let's try good old Gutenberg. Okay, we've got the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. Download as an ebook. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Shiny? Would you like to read about Robin Hood's adventures? say, we won't start this week. We'll start after I've set it up on the forum, etc. Uh, would you like to do that then, April? We'll have to find
yes, Lynn.
we'll have to find an online
Yeah.
forest. We'll have to find some tree somewhere with trees so that we
Ah,
can.
that's not it. That's not difficult, I think.
No.
Yeah, yeah, this one I've yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so that will be our new book. That's I have heard no objections from Shiny, so if there are no objections, uh, we will make it so. Let's see, then English Forum. Let's do it. Then it's done, and then we can get on. Gosh, that's great because, as I say, I have never read it, even though I know the stories so well. They were stories that were just told without the aid of a book, and through the films and through the TV series as well, which has been repeated so many times. Now, how does it go? Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Robin Hood, with his merry men. I'll see if I can find it on YouTube. It's really bad, really bad. So, where are we? We're in Chit Chat, Books and Poetry. Let's have a look. New discussion. What's it actually called? The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. Okay, so English Book Club Kitely. Excellent. So we'll start reading this book next week. Don't forget. Can watch, stream, or recorded video. Even if you can't. Okay. Watch the stream or recorded video on our YouTube channel. Excellent. I better announce it and then people will know. Thank you, April. Okay, so then for today we will read the short story The Emperor's New Clothes. Okay. And Shiny, you were the first in world, so would you like to start reading? And I will tell you when to stop. Is that okay? Shiny, have you got voice? Can you hear Shiny, April? I can't.
No, I can't. Is she reading?
Well, hello, baby. He wants to read. Shiny. Oh, she's crashed. Okay. Then you better start, April, and we can maybe read it together if Shiny can't join us with voice. Okay?
Okay, maybe you will hear the background.
That's okay.
Sure.
You can read along.
Many, many years ago lived an emperor who thought so much of new clothes that he spent all his money in order to obtain them. His only ambition. Oh, sorry, one moment. The battery is almost finished, so I have to open this. Okay, I think. Oh,
Aku.
why I can't?
I don't know. You need to
The
plug it in.
Aku.
Plug it in. Plug it in.
Yeah, yeah, I have done it, but why is?
We
I
might
don't
we
know
might
why.
not get this.
Okay,
We might not get this right.
I still have. I still have 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, good, good. Quick, read fast.
Okay. His only ambition was to be always well dressed. He did not care for his soldiers, and the theater did not amuse him. The only thing, in fact, he thought anything of was to drive out and show a new suit of clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, and as one would say of a king, he is in his cabinet. So one could say of him, the emperor is in his dressing room. The great city where he resided was very gay. Every day many strangers from all parts of the globe arrived. One day, two swindlers came to the city. They made people believe that they were weavers and declared they could manufacture the finest clothes to be imagined. Their colors and patterns, they said, were not only exceptionally beautiful, but the clothes made of their material possessed the wonderful quality of being invisible to any man who was unfit for his office or unpardonably stupid. That must be wonderful clothes, thought the emperor. If I were to be dressed in a suit made of this cloth, I should be able to find out which men in my empire were unfit for their places, and I could distinguish the clever from the stupid. I must have this cloth woven for me without delay. And he gave a large sum of money to the swindlers in advance, that they should set to work without any loss of time. They set up two looms and pretended to be very hard at work, but they did nothing whatever on the looms. They asked for the finest silk and the most precious gold cloth. All they got, they did away with and worked at the empty looms till late at night. I should very much like to know how they are getting on with the clothes, thought the emperor. But he felt rather uneasy when he remembered that he who was not fit for his office could not see it. Personally, he was of opinion that he had nothing to fear, yet he thought it advisable to send somebody else first to see how matters stood. Everybody in the town knew what a remarkable quality the stuff possessed, and all were anxious to see how bad or stupid their neighbors were. I shall send my honest old minister to the weavers, thought the emperor. He can judge best how the stuff looks, for he is intelligent and nobody understands his office better than he. The good old minister went into the room where the swindlers sat before the empty looms. Heaven preserve us, he thought, and opened his eyes wide. I cannot see anything at all. But he did not say so. But both swindlers requested him to come near and asked him if he did not admire the exquisite pattern and the beautiful colors, pointing to the empty looms. The poor old minister tried his very best, but he could see nothing, for there was nothing to be seen. Oh dear, he thought, can I be so stupid? I should never have thought so, and nobody must know it. Is it possible that I am not fit for my office? No, I cannot say that I was unable to see the cloth. Now, have you got nothing to say? Said one of the swindlers, while he pretended to be busily weaving. Oh, it was very pretty, exceedingly beautiful, replied the old minister, looking through his glasses. What a beautiful pattern! What brilliant colors! I shall tell the emperor that I like the cloth very much. We are pleased to hear that, said the two weavers, and described to him the colors and explained the curious pattern. The old minister listened attentively, that he might relate to the emperor what they said, and so he did. Now the swindlers asked for money, silk and gold cloth, which they required for weaving. They kept everything for themselves, and not a thread came near the loom, but they continued, as hitherto, to work at the empty looms. Soon afterwards, the emperor sent another honest courtier to the weavers to see how they were getting on and if the cloth was nearly finished. Like the old minister, he looked and looked, but could see nothing, as there was nothing to be seen. Is it not a beautiful piece of cloth? Asked the two swindlers, showing and explaining the magnificent pattern, which, however, did not exist. I'm not stupid, said the man. It is therefore my good appointment for which I am not fit. It is very strange, but I must not let anyone know it. And he praised the cloth, which he did not see, and expressed his joy at the beautiful colors and the fine pattern. It is very excellent, he said to the emperor. Everybody in the whole town talked about the precious cloth. At last the emperor wished to see it himself while it was still on the loom. With a number of courtiers, including the two who had already been there, he went to the two clever swindlers who now worked as hard as they could, but without using any thread. Is it not magnificent? Said the two old statesmen who had been there before. Your Majesty must admire the colors and the pattern. And then they pointed to the empty looms, for they imagined the others could see the cloth. What is this? Thought the emperor. I do not see anything at all. That is terrible. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be emperor? That would indeed be the most dreadful thing that could happen to me. Really, he said. I have to laugh because my grandson watching me listening. Oh, really, he said, turning to the weavers. Your clothes has our most gracious approval. And nodding contentedly, he looked at the empty loom, for he did not like to say that he saw nothing. All his attendants who were with him looked and looked, and although they could not see anything more than the others, they said like the emperor, "It is very beautiful," and all advised him to wear the new magnificent clothes at a great procession which was soon to take place. It is magnificent, beautiful, excellent, one heard them say. Everybody seemed to be delighted, and the emperor appointed the two swindlers imperial court weavers. The whole night previous to the day on which the procession was to take place, the swindlers pretended to work and burned more than 16 candles. People should see that they were busy to finish the emperor's new suit. They pretended to take the cloth from the loom and worked about in the air with big scissors and sewed with needles without thread and said at last, "The emperor's new suit is ready now." The emperor and all his barons then came to the hall. The swindlers held their arms up as if they held something in their hands and said, "These are the trousers. This, this is the coat, and here is the cloak," and so on. They are all as light as a cobweb, and one must feel as if one had nothing at all upon the body, but that is just the beauty of them. Is Shania already back, Lynn?
No, it says Shiny is online, but I can't see
Oh,
her anywhere nearby. So I did send her a teleport, but I think she's got real connection problems today. So if you, I
oh,
mean, I can carry
oh,
on if you want to stop, but it seemed to me the
oh,
baby
yeah,
was.
one moment.
Well, it just seemed to me
Yeah,
the baby was enjoying it so much.
it's very interesting. Yeah, he's interested in.
Children love to be read to. They know when they're
Yeah,
being. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah. Oh,
But it's up to you. I can finish if you like. Oh, I've got Hylin. I'm sorry, but could you send me the teleport again? Okay, hang on. Shiny might be on her way. See, it's often the way in virtual worlds. Let's see if it works. Or we can come to you. Hi, she is. Hi, welcome back, Shiny. Oh, it looks like April's crashed now. What's going on today? Honestly, what a mess. Okay, no. Okay, Shiny, can you hear me? You arrived and April crashed. Uh-huh.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Okay, good. April has
No
crashed,
way! Oh,
but if you would like to finish the story, okay,
yes.
um, then what I'll do is I'll cut and paste it so you don't have to worry about where we are in it, okay?
Okay.
So, from Does It Please Your Majesty, okay?
Okay. Does it please your majesty now to graciously undress, said the swindler, that we may assist your majesty is putting on the new suit before the large. Before the large looking glass, the emperor undressed and the swindlers pretended to put the new suit upon him, one piece after another, and the emperor looked at himself in the glass from every side. How well they look, how well they fit, said all. What a beautiful pattern, what fine colors. That is a magnificent suit for clothes. The master of the ceremonies announced that the barrels of the canopy which was to be carried in the procession were ready. "I'm ready," said the emperor. "Does not my suit fit me marvelously?" Then he turned once more to the looking glass, that people should think he admired his garments. The chamberlains who were to carry the train stretched their hands to the ground as if they lifted up a train and pretended to hold something in their hands. They did not like people to know that they could not see anything. The emperor marched in the procession under the beautiful canopy, and all who saw him in the street and out of the windows exclaimed, "Indeed, the emperor's new suit is incomparable. What a long train he has! How well it fits him!" Nobody wished to let others know he saw nothing, for then he would have been unfit for his office or too stupid. Never emperor's clothes were more admired. But he has nothing on at all," said the little child at last. "Good heavens, listen to the voice of an innocent child," said the father, and one whispered to the other what the child had said. "But he has nothing on at all," cried at last the whole people. That made a deep impression upon the emperor, for it seemed to him that they were right, but he thought to himself, "Now I must bear up to the end," and the chamberlains walked with still greater dignity, as if they carried the train which did not exist. The end. Yes. Oh. Yeah. Clothes.
my goodness. Okay, so let me switch the microphone on. Oh, okay. So April, the finest cloth. So cloth makes clothes. The empire, stress, asked for more money, silk and gold cloth. They asked for all three things. Courtier, imperial, and most importantly, sewed, not sued. Well done for correcting yourself on precious. Okay. Shiny, let's get to your corrections then. So, swindlers. Is that a new word for you? Swindlers. Oh, Shiny, have you got... Oh, yeah, there you are. Do you want to try it? Swindlers.
Swindlers.
That's it, yeah. To swindle somebody means to cheat them. They're cheaters, yeah? So, to cheat, to swindle somebody out of money. Swindlers swindle you out of money. So, to swindle is the verb, and swindler is the kind of person who does that, who tries to cheat you out of your money. Usually in some kind of rubbish investment, or getting you to give them money and promising that they'll pay you back with interest, but they have no intention of doing so. Okay, so it's often to do with money, getting payment for something that they have no intention to carry out the work. Okay. Then we've got emperor. If you look at the pronunciation, emperor, schwa, ra, schwa. So emperor. Try it.
Emperor.
Yeah, you're saying empora. There's no need. It's emperor, like per.
Emperor.
That's right. And if you notice, you'll quite often hear people saying emperor, as if that middle E doesn't exist at all. It's like a silent E often. Yeah? The emperor's new clothes. You can also say emperor. Okay. And then bearers, the bearers.
Bearers.
That's it. People who carry something, in this case, the emperor. Okay. To bear can also mean to carry something. Okay. To bear a burden. Okay. And then chamberlains. Chamberlains.
Chamberlains.
Not chain. Chamberlains.
Chamberlains.
That's it. And a chamberlain is basically somebody who works for a monarch. So I don't have chamberlains. I will never have chamberlains because I'm not royalty. However, the Queen has many chamberlains. They all have a different role. Okay. In the UK, we also have chamberlains in the government. Okay. So if you went to UK Gov, for example, and looked up the word chamberlain. Oh, hello, puppy.
I have to say I'm sorry because my screen went black, so I can touch any button.
Oh, don't
So
worry.
I can.
You can't mute.
mute.
That's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me know. Okay. But you can find different... It's like a job title almost, chamberlain. Okay. And
What do
then
they do?
the next one is exclaimed. Again, that long A. You don't like it, I know, but exclaimed.
Exclaim.
That's it. Well done.
Exclaim.
Yeah, that first one was perfect, and then you went exclaim again. And it's not M, it's aim. Exclaimed. Try it.
Exclaimed.
That's it, good. And again, this long A sound, greater.
Greater.
That's it. When you think about it, you can do it. Okay. When you're just reading, you do fall back into this eh sound that you make. But just try to practice the long vowels. A, oo, U. Okay. Hi, April. Welcome back. What a mess. Yeah. Are you okay? You just disappeared.
Oh, what a terrible day today.
Oh, it can't be worse than mine. I am sitting here, all I can smell is garlic and ginger, and it's everywhere. I put all, after the session this morning, and I was almost choking on the smell because there's chili in there as well. Oh, that's it. It was garlic, ginger, and chili oil. And it's all over my tablecloth. So after this morning's session, I had to put Vanish on the tablecloth, and I had to get it. And it's a big, heavy thing, and I've got a bad back at the moment. I had to carry it downstairs into the washroom and put it into the washer, and I just hope it's going to come out not stinking like that. And then I had to polish the table because it had soaked through the tablecloth onto the table. Oh, so you're not the only one who's had a bad morning, April. So what's happened to you, April? What went wrong?
So I told you that my battery is almost empty, and I couldn't. Normally, I have to just to switch it on, the adapter. Adapter.
Yeah.
But stupid me, the adapter is connected. It has to be plugged in. It was plugged in, but it wasn't on. so
I did wonder if your battery had gone flat.
Yeah.
But
and then I plugged it in, but it still doesn't work. Every time I switch on the computer, it is off again. It's what happened now? And apparently, you have from the adapter, you have also the cable to the laptop and to the electricity.
Yeah.
And one of them was
unplugged.
losing. Was a little bit unplugged.
Was loose.
Was loose.
Yeah.
Was
oh gosh. Well, it's always the way when we start our sessions after a break. It's always chaotic. So, April, sadly, I have got to disappear. But what we did, Shiny and I went through your corrections. So I'll share the video in the forum, and you'll be able to listen to your corrections. The most important one, though, is still to sew, not to sue. Yeah. You sew clothes. Yeah, you sue somebody who hasn't sewed your clothes. But Shiny did literally, you disappeared, April, and Shiny logged in. So Shiny was able to read to the end. So it wasn't too bad.
Poor Lynn. I have just watched the film from Agatha Christie, and then there were none. So it was 10 Little Indian, you know.
Yeah.
And now we were three of us. There were three of us here, and then Shiny left. There was two of us, and then me left.
Was not, yes.
I was thinking of that film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think we can read Agatha Christie books. I think they're still in copyright, sadly, even though she died in 1976. Yeah, we've got a few more years to wait until they're out of copyright, sadly. But they'd be great to read, wouldn't they? They're fantastic books. I love them.
Really? It is still on copyright?
Yeah.
Agatha Christie. 70
years after the author's death. I might have to check the German copyright, as I'm in Germany. Maybe it's a bit shorter. But in the UK, it has to be 70 years after the author's death. So, and she was, she had a good long life. I never realised she was born in 1890, which is amazing. So she had a good long life. I'd love to do Murder on the Orient Express, because then we could set it in a train. Anyway, we finished the story, and next week we will start our new book. I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a great one. I love it. I think it's one of the best stories. It's not a fairy story, as I said, because there's no fairies in it. There's no talking animals. So it's just a short story, but I think it's one of the better ones out there, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for rescuing me from being stuck here on my own. And hopefully, April, you'll remember to plug your laptop in next time. Fully charged. Fully charged. Actually, how long does your battery last, April? Does it only last an hour, or does it last longer?
No more. I think almost 2 hour and a half,
Okay,
almost
that
three
has, yeah.
hours.
Well, just need to plug it in before the
Yeah.
next session. Anyhow, I have got German in a bit, so I've got to go, otherwise I'll be late. And I haven't even downloaded
Okay.
the materials, so thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be back.
Thank you.
Nice to see you
Thank
again,
Thank
you.
you. Bye,
Shiny.
Shani.
Bye. Bye.
Bye,
Take
Paul.
care.
Bye, Spring.
was 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 flying actually. It's
Oh, floating, not flying, because I wasn't.
floating,
The
floating, floating. Yeah.
butterflies are flying because they're moving around. But if you're just sort of up in the air, not moving, you're floating. Okay, can you see the
Yeah, you are
mushroom now? Because I
floating.
am, honestly, you can check the stream later. I am sitting on a mushroom, honestly.
Really?
Yeah,
Not for me. It's so weird.
it's just not.
You
It's
are
not
just
rest.
like
It's not rest for you. If you move, if you go and
no.
sit somewhere, you'll probably find it will res. You can choose a mushroom. Oh no, don't sit on shiny.
I was clicking on sit here, but I'm not sitting. What's happened now
You're
with
sitting
my
on shiny.
Kitely? And where is that bottom? Where is that? Where is that stand
Stand
that I have to
this.
click? I don't have it. I
Well,
don't have
I've
it.
got it.
How can I stand now?
I don't
How can I
know.
stand now?
It's very funny. If you watch the stream, you'll be able to see what's happened to you. Try just moving. Try just flying, or something. Because
What happened now? I
I don't.
can't. Fairy tale? Is it about fairy? About something extraordinary?
Yeah, I
And
think you're
fable
right.
is
I mean,
yes?
fables are often written for children, but they're also written for adults. So fables often have an element of maybe talking animals in them, but there's often a moral in the story as well. And quite often they're written for children, but they're more likely to be real. Fairy tales, again, often talking animals, but lots of magic. To me, fairy tales contain magic, um, things that are unreal. And fairy tales are written purely for children, just for kids. Fables can be written for children and adults. Then, of course, we have folk tales, and folk tales tend to be local tales. Yeah? Folk tales tend to be tales from different countries. We call them folk tales. Again, sometimes a little bit of reality mixed in, but often with a little bit of um, a moral in the story. They all contain morals, usually, something that says how we should live our lives, etc. Um, and no,
I can't move.
you can't move. You're
I can move. I can move.
Shiny, could you move? I know it's difficult for you sometimes to move, but could you step backwards a bit, maybe, Shiny? Ah, well done, Shiny. Okay, we'll leave you float. You're floating in midair now, April. So I don't know what's going on with your system, but it doesn't matter as long as we can hear each other. That's all that really matters. Anyhow, I chose the library today because it is so grey and miserable and cold in Germany at the moment. It's been wet and dank and just horrible weather, not a winter wonderland at all. I felt quite sorry for our visitors, but I can't book the weather, so I thought we'd have a bit of spring. It's a bit early, but today on my walk with Leica, I did see the catkins. So spring is coming quite early. I mean, it's January, and to see catkins on the hazel trees was quite a surprise. But anyway, so we'll leave April floating in midair because we're going to, as I say, read today. And my question to you was, what's the difference between a fable and a fairy tale? Any idea?
I don't know.
So, hello and welcome. It's Lynn here from the Learn English Network. We're actually on the library sim today because we're going to discuss our next book for the reading club, and we'll do a bit of reading. I thought what we could do today is read a fairy story, and I've chosen The Emperor's New Clothes. I don't know if you're aware of the story, but it's a good one. And it's not really a fairy story in some ways because there aren't really any fairies in it. It's more a fable, to be honest. But do you know the difference between a fable and a fairy story? Any ideas?
Both are not real, but I don't know. But once again, I see you now from the from the side, and you are sitting so weird
Am I?
on the on the mushroom. You are not sitting actually. I only
I am.
see your both feet on the mushroom, and your bottom, your butt.
Yeah, but to me, folk tales and fairy tales are on one side of the equation, fables are on another side. And I like both. I mean, they might have been written for children, but I still enjoy reading fairy tales, and they're great for learning, of course, because they're written for children. They often use simpler language, and so they are good for learners. There are loads of websites out there with short stories, folk tales, fairy tales, fables. Just if you just search for all those terms, let me just write down folk tales, fable, fairy tales, and legends and myths as well. Okay, so if you search for those terms, um, maybe add a country as well. Japanese fables or Japanese folk tales can be really interesting, actually, Shiny. And also Arabian. Add a country's name, and you'll find lots of different types of fairy stories and folk tales outside the sort of Hans Christian Andersen, Grimm brother ones that tend to